And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Democracy Now!'s Nermeen Sheikh.
Thank you, Amy. And welcome to our listeners around the world and around the country. As we reported in headlines, Oakland police repeatedly fired tear gas and flash grenades Tuesday night as protesters attempted to retake the Occupy Oakland encampment outside City Hall. Observers said that at times, downtown resembled a war zone. The protests began 12 hours after police raided the Occupy Oakland encampment and arrested nearly 100 protesters. The detained protesters are being held on $10,000 bail. Here are some of the voices from last night's demonstration.
People have tear gassed us multiple times for peacefully sitting and protesting.
The whole world is watching.
It was so unjust. Like nobody was really doing anything that would justify tear gas.
Bakersfield, California, occupy. Berkeley, California, occupy.
I'm Momo. I was born and raised in Oakland, and basically we're sick of corporate greed. That's all it is. Sickness of corporate greed.
Everybody knows it's not fair for 2% to own 50% of the wealth in this world. No matter what business school you went to, if you didn't learn that, you failed kindergarten.
People are fed up on multiple levels, right? Like through public education, all the resources that are being cut, the fees that are going up. I think the economy, and just there's a lot of things that are culminating right now. So this is just an extension of all that, and that's where I'm coming from.
People had a meeting over in front of the library at 4, and we decided that we wanted to come and take this park. It's public land. We are the public of California. They're here to protect and serve us, and right now they're not doing too good of a job.
But we know we are here for a cause, and that cause it has to be achieved. There's no way we're going to go back. No way. Nobody going to put us back. No way. The more you try to put us back, the more we come in large numbers.
Thanks to KPFA's John Hamilton for some of those voices in Oakland last night, where police repeatedly fired tear gas and flash grenades at protesters, upset that police had cleared the Occupy encampment in front of City Hall Monday morning. Earlier in the day, interim police chief Howard Jordan defended the use of force to break up the camp.
The decision to move was based on public health and safety due to defecation, fire hazards, sexual assault incidents, violent behavior, and the denial of access of medical aid.
We're joined right now in Berkeley at the University of California, Berkeley's TV studios by Rachel Jackson. She's with the Oscar Grant Committee Against Police Brutality and State Repression. She's been helping to organize Occupy Oakland. We're also joined by John Avalos. He is the San Francisco City Supervisor and candidate for mayor of San Francisco. On Tuesday, John Avalos introduced a resolution supporting the right of Occupy San Francisco protests to continue its peaceful assembly on Market Street and other public spaces like Justin Herman Plaza. Rachel Jackson, John Avalos, welcome to Democracy Now! Rachel, let's start with you. What happened over these last 24 hours? And also, your group is called the Oscar Grant Committee Against Police Brutality and State Repression. They've also named the plaza outside City Hall the Oscar Grant Plaza. Explain why.
Yes, Amy. First of all, I just want to clarify really quickly that I'm not one of the organizers, but have been a supporter and a participant and was one of many people who were signed on to do emergency response when the eviction time came. The significance of calling the square Oscar Grant Plaza it's twofold. One is in memory of Oscar Grant and all of the young men who were attacked by the BART police, and Oscar having been murdered by the BART police in 2009. But also,
this was the famous image that was caught on videotape. Explain to our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world.
Sure. So basically a group of young people and young men were traveling home from just being out partying in San Francisco on New Year's Eve of 2009. And they headed home, in fact, because they headed home from San Francisco to the East Bay, in part because they were afraid that things were going to get too rowdy in the city, and because people were concerned about drunk driving and so on, the young people took BART. And sadly, it was a fateful decision because in trying to do the right thing, what ended up happening is that they were basically racially profiled, attacked by police officers, and Oscar Grant was shot in the back at almost point-blank range while he was subdued on his stomach with his hands behind his back.
And so your committee was formed.
And yes, it was one of many things, and for a lot of us here, I mean, part of what has been so significant is, you know, about this past 2 weeks, is that you know, sort of it's a confluence or sort of a perfect storm of people coming together and timing, and really the naming is part of also like a celebration of Oscar Grant and the fact that that we have actually been able to hold 14th and Broadway, and really after, you know, for 3 years of being run out of the plaza, being subjected to martial law during Operation Verdict in Oakland when the Meserly verdict came in, and then Operation Sentencing in November when Meserly was sentenced. There have been these huge mobilizations, unprecedented mobilizations, military, mutual aid mobilizations with law enforcement from all over the state and Homeland Security, and the list goes on. And you know, we've continued to assert our right to be at 14th and Broadway and be in the plaza, and you know, we have fought for that space as part of Oakland's development politically and its maturation politically. And last night, when really the 12 hours ago, when for one of the few times, and I'm sure many people's lives, when people chanted, "Whose streets? Our streets." And when Oakland is under attack, what do? Stand up, fight back. That was real, and that you know, the night. The 24 hours ago that started with the 5 a.m. pre-dawn vicious raid by the police on the campers at Occupy Oakland, what started with the protesters being chased and on the defensive and scattered in 12 hours by 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, when people learned of the early morning raid, by 5 or 6 o'clock yesterday evening, the tables had completely turned, and the initiative was with the people of the Bay Area and the people of Oakland, and really the police, despite having had their huge arsenal of weapons and so on, they ended up on the defensive, and really the marches and activities that went on yesterday, they were not over until we said that they were over, until the people decided it was time to go home. And in the next period, we want to be clear to Mayor Kwan and anybody else who's involved in the decision-making process. We want the camp back. We want the camp back. We want everyone's stuff back. We want charges dropped against protesters and end to martial law in Oakland.
Rachel Jackson, can you say a little bit about why did the police decide to strike yesterday in the morning at 5 a.m.? What prompted that?
Well, it's an interesting question around who makes these decisions. In some ways, you know, there are clearly tensions here in Oakland between the police department and law enforcement on the one hand, and Jean Kwan, the mayor's office, on the other, with Chief Batts stepping down just days ago or a week ago. And in part because he felt like he didn't have the tools frankly, of repression and racial profiling that he wanted, such as youth curfews, gang injunctions, and anti-loitering laws. On the one hand, we had a disgruntled chief who stepped down, who felt like he didn't have enough of an arsenal here, and felt that the mayor wasn't giving him what he needed on the one hand, and then on the other hand, we had the mayor who basically was missing in action. And so, there's these power plays, these power dynamics that are going on.
The police chief referred to some kind of sexual assault?
That was basically like the WMDs of our struggle here has been rats, sexual assault, and drug use. And that's why I say that it's interesting to think about the decision-making process, because while clearly there are individuals who are making certain decisions, we have to look at and be suspicious of the fact that many of the camps all got attacked at the same time and really largely for the same reasons.
John Avalos, you're San Francisco city supervisor. You're trying to guarantee that Occupy San Francisco doesn't meet the same fate. Explain what you're doing.
Well, yesterday I introduced a resolution co-sponsored by 3 other supervisors to call on the mayor and the police department to cooperate and collaborate with the Occupy movement and Occupy SF movement. And in my mind, the occupation in and of itself is the right to assembly and free speech. So you can't, I would say our constitutional rights would trump any law we have here at the local level. And what the Occupy movement is about is certainly something greater than the need to contain public space, and I support it. The resolution calls for the departments, the police department, the Department of Public Health, and the Rec and Park Department, the main departments that are in confluence with the Occupy movement protesters, to work collaboratively on sharing space and providing resources that could benefit the movement staying in its current space or finding another space where they can occupy.
And talk about why people are occupying, John Avalos, and what the issues you feel must be protected, and this whole issue of we are the 99%, which has become the mantra, and what you feel needs to be done to protect them.
Well, sure. Thank you. I actually represent a part of San Francisco that has a high rate of foreclosure, the 94112 zip code, and as well as Bayview Hunters Point and Visitation Valley. And my part of San Francisco has a really high level of foreclosure. A lot of households are working class, middle class households that were, a lot of them were taken by the subprime lending crisis. And they're now losing their wealth, which is in their homes. A lot of them are dealing with high unemployment. We have the highest unemployment rate in San Francisco. It's about 9.7% in San Francisco, but much higher in our communities and communities of color, African-American community and Latino community. It's much higher. A lot of people are disaffected. We have high homelessness of families. Often homelessness gets targeted as single adults in San Francisco, but we have families that are on our waiting list for homeless services, for housing, for emergency housing. That's a crisis that's rising. And so we have a lot of people who are very frustrated with the conditions that they are living in. We are living in conditions that have not received the bailout, the respite from the federal government that we had expected would come with the bailout of the banks.
John Avalos, this issue of the banks and foreclosures, the San Francisco's Board of Supervisors has weighed such a move, including supporting not only the Occupy San Francisco encampment, but urging adoption of policies that would prompt big banks into modifying mortgages. How can the Board of Supervisors do this?
Well, currently, I've called for a study on creation of our own municipal bank here in San Francisco, and we have our budget is $6.8 billion, and every year we actually totally beyond our budget with the school district and city college district. We have a $12 billion budget that goes through financial institutions in the Bay Area and around the country. And if we had a way to leverage our pocketbook to get the banks to be more accountable to supporting small businesses or to help households avoid defaults through loan modifications or to write down the mortgages to the current property value of households that are underwater. We could pump more money into the local economy. We can create more jobs. That's the idea behind it. So we're looking at long-term, a creation of a municipal bank, but in the short term, can we have any leverage points on the local banking institutions, either through divestment of our dollars into other institutions, could be community financial, what are they called, community development financial institutions or credit unions that will help us more readily here at the local level.
John Avalos, I want to thank you for being with us. San Francisco City Supervisor and Rachel Jackson with the Oscar Grant Committee Against Police Brutality and State Repression. Of course, we'll continue to follow what's happening at Occupy Oakland and Occupy San Francisco, at Occupy Chicago, Occupy New York, and we'll talk about what's happening all over the country as we continue to follow what the issues are that are being raised and how the state is dealing with those issues. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org.